Welcome to the Dishy Dads, the podcast where culinary creativity meets captivating conversations. Stay tuned for delicious recipes, juicy stories, and inspiring guests. All served up just for you. Hi, and welcome back to the Dishy Dads podcast. My name's Gary. This week, I'm going to attempt, watch this space, to do the episode solo on my own. Jay is down with horrific toothache. He's booked the emergency dentist. Luckily, he got into one. Not many people can. I remember my wife needed an emergency dentist. I think it took about 4 weeks to get in there. So she was like gobbling painkillers just to control the pain. So Jay, hope you're okay, mate. Hope you're listening. I'm going to do my best, try and do us proud. For context, I'm sat in a conservatory, hiding from the children to try and get a 30-minute peace and quiet just to do the podcast. Uninterrupted if I can. It's 9 p.m. on a Wednesday evening. I put the kids in bed. They probably sneaked a tablet or a telephone under the duvet, but I'm just going to try and smuggle half an hour of my own time sat here in the conservatory. You could probably hear birds singing in the background just as the sun goes down. Based on the fact that I'm hiding in a dark conservatory or nearly dark conservatory, there probably will not be a video for this week's podcast. Sorry if I let you down on that one, but we'll still be on Spotify and on Apple. Vocally, it's probably going to be about half an hour, I reckon, so not too long. Half the person, half the amount of hosts, half the amount of talking, so I'll do my best. Just wanted to be like a little bit like restaurants, cafes. We have a term where we say there's 3 C's in catering, and that's consistency, consistency, consistency. So for us, for a new brand, and good mates, us, the Dishy Dads, are really committed to being there each week. So if you are listening to episodes on the podcast, then we want to show up each week and make sure we're there. So if one of us goes down, then the other one will be there to do a solo podcast, unless this goes absolutely terribly and we never want to do it again. But like Bob Marley said, true friends are like stars. You only recognise them when it goes dark all around you. So Jay, mate, hope you're okay. Hope the toothache's doing all right. Get those Paramol in there. Hopefully a dentist can sort it out. I wouldn't be surprised if next week when I see you've had a trip to Turkey and you've got some big shining Bobby Dazzlers in your mouth. If you listen to last week's podcast, it's probably a case of being middle-aged men. We both got smashed with a flu virus on the same week, so we missed the podcast 2 weeks ago and came back last week sounding like, Jay sounded like Barry White. We got through that. This week, Jay's got toothache, and believe it or not, on the same day of Jay getting toothache, I was in the kitchen this morning, talking to the guys in the kitchen. My attention slipped, as did the cucumber in my hand. It flipped over, did a somersault in the air, and my thumb slid down a plastic Chinese mandolin straight onto the blade. Luckily, my bone stopped the mandolin going straight through my thumb, so I averted complete disaster. It's throbbing. If you've ever cut yourself that bad where the blade hits your bone, you wrap a plaster around it for the rest of the day, and even though you try and focus on work, it's like your heart has moved location into your hand or where you hurt yourself. And for the rest of the day, I could feel my heart beating away at the end of my thumb. Chefs, if you're listening to this, just by me saying I've slid my thumb down a Chinese mandolin, I can imagine all the nerve endings in your hands are already tingling as you can feel the pain. Chefs cut ourselves that many times that when somebody else describes a cut, your hands can just sense that feeling of a blade going into your skin. And if you're not a chef and you don't work in a kitchen, then my story might sound horrific. It might make you wince. But in chefs, a bit like pirates with knives, we cut ourselves a lot. So we got some blue roll, dabbed it up, antiseptic wipe, wrapped blue plaster around it. And if you know blue plasters, they fly off all the time. So I got the blue plaster on, got some tape, wrapped it up, and I was good to go. We did think about cancelling the podcast, but we thought to ourselves, let's, like I said, let's be consistent. Let's get the podcast out there. So hopefully, like I said, it's going to be okay. I'm sat here in a conservatory, like I said. The kids are on Easter holidays now. So if you are parents, if you are dads out there listening, you probably know that your kids get pretty bored fast over Easter and they want 110% of your attention, which is what I want to talk about, really. I've got 5 children, got 3 older children from a previous marriage. Then luckily enough, I've had another set of like two younger ones, another daughter, another son. And for me, it's kind of been a blessing in the sense that I was working so hard when the older girls were younger. I probably didn't give them enough time. They probably disagree. I was there as much as I could be, but now I've got a second chance at younger children when they want to play, when they want to spend time with me. I kind of grab that at both hands because I've kind of learned a lesson now that children just grow up so fast that when they want to play with you and you're their hero and they want to spend time with you, just take the opportunity, spend time with them, enjoy their time, because believe it or not, the time goes so fast, and before you know it, it's going to be the other way around where you want to spend time with them, but they've got boyfriends, social lives, and they're not going to spend as much time with you as you want. So for me now, just want to say I got a kind of second chance at spending time with my kids. I've got better hours now. So working in a coffee shop is a lot more social than working in a restaurant. I used to go to work at like 7 in the morning, get home at 11 p.m, miss the kids' day. I used to race to pick them up from school in the afternoon just to spend like 1 hour with them every day. But now, better hours in the coffee shop. So now I get to spend my evenings with them. The problem is I'm getting a little bit older and I get pretty knackered, but my son wants to play football all the time. So as much as I can, as much energy as I got, I try and play with him as much as possible. Over these holidays, I've kind of taken the lazy approach. We've got a Nintendo DS out, so we're doing Nintendo DS Sports on the TV so I can play football and basketball while I'm sat down having a cup of tea. But like I said, it's Easter holidays. Easter weekend is coming up this weekend, bank holiday weekend. And for all you parents out there, here's a little tip to grab a little afternoon nap. I like to do an Easter egg hunt in the garden. I hide 48 eggs. That's right, I hide 48 eggs in the garden and tell the kids there's 50 eggs hidden around the garden. Go in the house, make a cup of tea, sit down. The kids will race around the garden looking for the eggs. And of course, if you hide 48, but they're telling them there's 50, there's 2 elusive eggs that don't exist, which gives you another good half an hour sat down before they come back to find you. From my point of view, I love Easter. Like you probably listened to a couple of weeks ago, me and Jay had kind of horrifically aggressive fathers who kind of like disrupted our childhood. If you haven't heard that episode, take a listen back to that one. For me, and I think for Jay as well, he said his grandfather was like an English gentleman. So luckily we had the alternative father figure there to kind of look at, to base our own lives on. And for me, when I was a kid, one of my favourite Easter memories was sitting by the front room window, waiting for my grandfather to turn up. What car did he have? I think he had a Morris Minor. All I remember was he had white leather seats, or like beige leather seats. And in the summer, the seats got so hot, we used to sit in there in shorts and like feel our back of our legs sticking to the leather seats. I have to ask my mum what the car was. Pretty sure it was a Morris Minor, but he used to pull up every Easter on a Sunday, open the back door and get a stack of Easter eggs, pull them out his back. And I remember him walking up the driveway, stack of Easter eggs in his hands. And I mean, these were back in the 80s when Easter eggs were like proper size, like probably double the size they are now. And correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the chocolates were on the inside of the Easter egg back then. Now they're on the outside, probably to make the Easter egg packaging look bigger. But back then, the Easter eggs were massive. Chocolates were on the inside. And that was one of my favourite Easter memories as a kid, watching my grandfather pull up Sunday morning, stack full of Easter eggs in his hand as he came into the house. And I'm pretty sure I used to eat all the Easter eggs all in one go. And I didn't even feel sick. If I had one Easter egg now, probably that sugar would probably take me down. But back then, I remember gorging on Easter eggs, all on Easter Sunday. Nice memory. And of course, another memory from my childhood was hot cross buns. How can you have Easter without hot cross buns? I remember hot cross buns being cut in half, toasted, and then from memory, my mum used to put a slab of salty, real butter on top. We're talking like, a paving stone of butter slabbed on top of your hot cross bun and melting down, so you bit into your hot cross bun until butter kind of like ran down your fingers. Now I want a hot cross bun. Which leads me onto our food blog. If you haven't checked out www.winchestercookeryschool.com/blog, this week I've uploaded my favourite hot cross bun recipe. Now, I tried making these a couple of years ago and the recipe is too dry, so I've tweaked it and now it is nice, moist, soft, full of fruit, perfect for Easter. So head over to the food blog. On there is 3 recipes. First recipe, you have got your hot cross bun recipe. It's a bit like a bread recipe, so you basically make it, knead it, and then you roll it into little balls. If you've made bread rolls before, you know what I'm talking about. Roll the bread into balls. Then the second recipe, And if you never knew how this was done, it's a flour paste. It's a flour paste recipe, and then you put that in a piping bag and you put the cross on top of the hot cross bun, ready for it to be baked. Now you're going to prove it like a bread roll, and it's going to go in the oven for about 10 to 15 minutes. All the instructions are on the blog. And then the third recipe is the sugar glaze. You can put apricot jam on there, melted down, but I like this sugar glaze recipe as it gives it a real nice glaze, a real nice shine to the hot cross bun once it comes out of the oven and once it's cooked. And as chefs, we would love to hear in the comments what your favourite Easter recipe is. What do you do at Easter? Do you have a big roast? Do you celebrate Easter? I think this year, as per most years in our household, Easter Monday, we're going to get a leg of lamb, roast it down, stud it with, get the leg of lamb, and then we pierce little holes all over the leg of lamb, put cloves of garlic in there, and then put like big sprigs of rosemary in there, cover that in sea salt, drizzle olive oil over the top, a few slabs of butter on top of that, and that's going to go in the oven at 180, and we're just going to cook it till it's pink. If you've got a food thermometer, which is highly recommended, head over to Amazon, about £4, £4.50 for a good food thermometer, and then you can probe that into the lamb and get it to about 54 degrees. Take it out, cover it in tin foil, rest it, and then carve it off with your Sunday roast. Perfect Easter roast lamb. Now, back years ago, I used to work on the Isle of Wight, and I used to work at the Priory Bay Hotel. I was head chef at the Priory Bay Hotel, early 2000s, and a good friend of mine worked there called Lincoln Jones. He's got a YouTube channel called The Fish Disco. So if you're ever on YouTube and you love food, and if you love fishing, head over to The Fish Disco. He shows you how to put baits together, which rods he uses down on the Dorset coast. But he also cooks the most amazing food on a beach on a single gas stove. Let me think, some of the most extravagant things he's cooked. Loved his Christmas special last year. He cooked a 3-course roast turkey dinner with Christmas pudding dessert on the beach on a single gas stove. It's a must watch. He's also done what else did he do? He did a ginormous pork pie on the beach. And if you've ever made pork pies, you know how hard it is to get that hot water pastry. Well, he's done that. He's done it on the beach, on pebbles, sort of wind going around, wind whistling around his camera. And then he's built his own little oven, welded it together, put it on top of the gas stove and cooked a massive pork pie on the beach. You have to go and check it out. But the reason I'm talking about Lincoln is he did one of my favourite things for a veg dish. He used to do honey roasted parsnips, and he used to put honey in a saucepan, caramelise it off. Then he used to put orange zest, orange juice, fresh rosemary, and then he used to put the cooked parsnips into that caramelised honey, toss it around, and then roast it off in the oven, seasoned with salt and pepper. Now, I'm not using parsnips for this Sunday roast, or Easter roast, sorry. I'm going to use some beautiful spring carrots, and I'm going to boil those off. Boil them off? If you go on my Instagram account, I do a good carrot recipe where you roast the carrots off in tin foil. So that gets the best flavour. So I think I'm going to put the carrots in tin foil, season them, a little bit of oil, roast them in their own kind of steam, take them out, and I'm going to caramelise the honey in a pan. Fresh rosemary, because that's going to work really well with the lamb. Honey, caramelise it off, put the carrots in, orange juice, and then back in the oven for a nice roasting. If you've got any favourite recipes that you love eating at Easter, then please drop them in the comments, and when me and Jay might cook them off on the podcast. Now, if you look at my social media, Tasty Gary Bites, you know I love doing my own gardening, and luckily enough, I've got a nice garden here and a greenhouse. Oh, just stood up too fast. Yeah, so there's nothing like growing your own vegetables and then cooking them in the kitchen once they've grown and kind of like seeing that progression. So I just planted some plum tomatoes yesterday. So I'm filming that. So I'm going to do a reel soon based on plum tomatoes. I basically sliced it, put the whole slice into soil. I'm going to try and grow them from that. But for this Easter, I've got some fantastic rhubarb grown in the garden. So I think this Easter roast, we're going to have to do a rhubarb crumble for the dessert after the roast lamb. I don't know about you, but crumble is one of my favourite desserts in the world. Rhubarb mixed with strawberries, cooked down, a little bit of sugar, a couple of vanilla pods if you can afford it. If not, you can get that vanilla bean paste from Waitrose. Some of that in there, into a dish, and then on top the crumble mix. And now this is the first recipe from a professional kitchen that I ever remember. When I was 15 years old, I was put into a 5-star hotel pastry kitchen, oblivious to what was going on. But the one recipe I remember was for crumble, and that was the 3-2-1 recipe, where you take 300 grams of flour, 200 grams of butter, 100 grams of sugar, rub it together in your hands, and that is your crumble mix, and that can go on top of your crumble. Now, back to Lincoln Jones. This is where the link goes in. Not only did he do some great parsnips, he also had a great crumble recipe. And the crumble recipe, he put smashed hazelnuts in there, flaked almonds, and spices. And as we're doing a rhubarb crumble, I'm going to put some fresh ginger into, it's not fresh ginger, probably powdered ginger. The fresh ginger would be too hard to go in. You could blend it with the butter. If you want to get really fancy, you could blend the ginger with the butter and then rub that into your flour. And if we're talking veg, obviously we talk about roast potatoes. Everyone loves a decent roast potato. And I think when I learned roast potatoes growing up, it was from the forgotten legend who shares a name with me, Gary Rhodes. Got Gary Rhodes' English cookbook years ago. And I remember he was the one who I was learning from, talking about getting the right potato, getting a good floury potato like a Maris Piper. But it's always worth checking different varieties of potatoes just to see which potato works best for you. So when we have the fish and chip shop, we always just get a couple of varieties of potatoes each week and just test them, kilo of each, just to test which one gave us the best chips. Because until you test a potato, you never know which variety is best at which time of year. So good advice if you're a big fan of a roast potato. Test a couple of varieties. They change throughout the year, so find the best one at that time of year. And then I simply, like Gary Rhodes showed me in his book, I had his book and I read it. Never met him, but his roast potatoes, got a decent potato, nice floury potato. Peeled it, boiled it in salted water, drained it off for about 10 minutes, let it steam to get the moisture out of the potato. Then gave it a little shake in the colander to fluff up the edges. And then I learned this tip from my cousin. When he cut the potatoes, he had medium-sized potatoes. He cut the potato in a nice length slab, so you had a big wide surface. Heat the oil up in the oven. And then I chuck some fresh rosemary, fresh thyme in there, and then put the potato that's been steaming for about 10 to 15 minutes flat side down on a big slab. So that gives you a great big crispy surface when the roast potato is done. Now I'll roast those for about 20 minutes on one side, flip them over halfway through cooking and roast them on the other side. And then when they come out of the oven, learn this from a French Michelin star chef. Take them out of the oven when they finish roasting, season them again, and then get little tiny knobs of cold butter, put it into the tray, and then gently move the tray backward and forward. Not like in a shaking motion, but not shaking because you don't want to destroy the potatoes. Move the potatoes backwards and forwards, nice and slowly, just so the butter helps release potatoes from the tray. And as it's Easter, if you can get hold of some lamb fat, or you can roast your leg of lamb first and then use the fat from the leg of lamb to add to your roast potato fat, you're going to have some delicious roast potatoes. So roast potatoes in the lamb fat, get some fresh rosemary in there, get some garlic in there, get some fresh thyme in there, roast potatoes off, give them a little sea salt, some cracked black pepper, some fresh flaked sea salt at the end, and then little tiny knobs of salted butter. Move the tray backwards and forwards, and this gives you a delicious, rich finish to those roast potatoes. And all the butter gets in the crunchy, crumbly bits on the outside. Absolutely delicious. And without being a downer, the podcast, doing it on my own in the conservatory, kind of reminds me. I just watched Jamie's men's coach. Me and Jay have mentioned Jamie's men's coach before on the channel. It's kind of Jamie's if you're listening, he's a coach, so you can go and follow him on Facebook, massive on TikTok, on Instagram. But he's a counsellor, and he's there for basically for guys who like get into their middle ages, I suppose. Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong, but just there's kind of a group of guys out there. I think divorced guys, middle-aged guys who are struggling. A lot of men get divorced in their middle ages, end up on their own. And Jamie's got a great channel, and he's created a Facebook group where the community comes together. And if a bloke's going through a hard time, blokes have always struggled speaking out, talking. But Jamie's created a group on Facebook. I found him on TikTok. And then he said on TikTok, go over to Facebook and join my group, which I did. And, it's just nice being part of that community. So if you're a bloke, and I just thought of it now because one, I'm sat on my own in a conservatory, and it kind of gave me like memories of just after my divorce, kind of being in my own flat, separated from the family, which I felt ripped away from like my family which was kind of like my bubble, my community around me, suddenly found myself on my own in a flat. And Jamie, in his last live conversation on Facebook, was talking about loneliness and being on your own. So yeah, I just thought about it now because I'm sat here in a conservatory, and one thing it taught me was that it's not a bad thing if you can enjoy your own company. It gives you a stronger sense of purpose moving forward in your own life, and you don't feel like you need that codependency of a relationship. So I know just going through my life, I kind of went from one relationship to the next, kind of almost, I suppose, cliche, seeking happiness, seeking company, but being forced to be on my own actually kind of hardened me up, strengthened me up, and now I enjoy my company, especially getting out in nature. When I worked in North Wales, just I realised that certain parts of the country that are really rural have massive like energy beneath the ground and like help you recharge your batteries faster. And luckily for me in Hampshire, got a new forest, and as you probably see from my YouTube videos and Instagram, going to the new forest as much as possible, surrounded by wildlife, big trees that have been there thousands or hundreds of years, and you just get a real sense of nature recharging your batteries. So if you're on your own, get out in nature. It's not a bad thing being on your own. Feels a bit strange sometimes. I found a new family now. Couldn't be happier. But I remember being on my own to start with was a little bit tricky. Just felt a bit alien. And I suppose thinking out loud, I suppose you kind of like all the demons in your brain kind of come out and try and taunt you, and it's kind of a power battle in your own brain to good versus evil. I suppose you have those dark feelings, but at the same time, you kind of come to grips with the fact that you are you, and spending time with yourself helps you kind of sounds a bit hippie and spiritual, but kind of find yourself, and then moving forward in your life, you're a stronger and harder person because of that process. I hope this conversation is not a downer. It's meant to inspire anybody out there who's on their own at the moment. So if you're listening, and one of the demons in my head at the moment is I just feel like I'm sat here talking to myself. But if you are listening, and I don't know who's listening, thank you for taking the time to listen. Very grateful, very humble for it. And if you are on your own, just enjoy it. Get out in nature, go for a walk, read a book, enjoy the peace and quiet. It's not always there. And here's my last topic that I was going to talk to Jay about. It's actually quite nice doing a podcast like this. I'm laid out on a kind of like loungy chair in the conservatory. Birds are still singing outside. But my last topic I was going to talk to Jay about this week, I had like a little list of things I was going to talk about. Me and the family got a delivery last week, a couple of weeks ago. The kids had a really good parents' evening. Both our children around the 10-year-old mark went to meet their teachers. Their school's been in the news recently, but I won't name the school. They had a really good parents' evening, both highly praised for being two great kids, doing really well at school. So we treated them to a takeaway. And this is where my point and conversation point for Jay was going to be the fact that we said, let's get a takeaway as a treat. We went on to Deliveroo. They wanted a McDonald's, but we don't like getting a McDonald's. The amount of times I've ordered a McDonald's on Deliveroo, 2 or 3 times, but 100% success rate for McDonald's. They've got it wrong every single time. So I've probably ordered McDonald's 3 times for like 3 kids' parties, and every single time I've had to get in my car, drive down to McDonald's, pick up the missing food, pick up straws that weren't in the bag, pick up drinks that weren't in the bag, and then drive back. And when I got back, the food was cold. It cost me a fortune, and I ended up going to McDonald's in the end, and I should have just gone there in the first place to get it. So if we do ever go, we just go now rather than getting on delivery. So on this case, we said, kids, do you want a treat? No McDonald's. They say KFC. We thought, okay, don't mind a KFC. I don't think it's as good as it used to be. I remember being really good, but I think recently it's just not hitting the mark like it used to, mainly like a lot of things. But as you can see on Deliveroo app, they accepted the order. They said the food is ready. We then waited an hour and 10 minutes for the driver who accepted the order to get to the restaurant, pick it up, and bring it to our house. Now, when we had Noshbox, me and John, if the delivery driver took too long, we used to recook the food to make sure it was hot for when it got to the customer and got delivered. And we're an independent business, so we wanted to take care of our customer base. KFC, probably for them, it's just a job, just getting the money in the bank. So they cooked the order, and to be fair to them, they cooked the order, they said it was ready, and we watched the delivery driver take an hour to get to the restaurant to pick up the food and then get to us. And then when he got to us, as you can imagine, the food was stone cold, like it was colder than room temperature, which technically probably should be impossible because it's probably sat under hot lights. So as a chef and working in the catering industry, one part of me thought to myself, on a food hygiene basis, where we're only allowed to hold food for a certain time and we have to probe it regularly to make sure it's hot enough and it hasn't entered the danger zone. And on this occasion, I would have been happy to eat it in the danger zone because it would have been warmer than the food I got when it was delivered. Is a restaurant allowed to serve lukewarm food after an hour, or should they be throwing it away and recooking it? Drop me a comment on what you think about this one. And should a restaurant be serving cold food? Now, I know it's not their fault, and I know their systems are in place to click the food is ready and they wait for a delivery driver. But should they be serving cold food to their customers? And a third or four things I think we're up to. It's not cheap. Obviously, now delivery companies charge about 30%. I think KFC, they charge 20% for delivering their food. And obviously KFC are adding that. And I think, let's not quote, I think KFC are adding that to their price because it costs 40 quid for us to have a delivery of KFC, which was like one chicken burger, one portion of chips and a can of drink or a carton of drink. But it turned up stone cold. You have the right to complain on the app, which we did, and we got 25% off. But that still meant we paid full price, £30 for stone cold chips, stone cold chicken that have been sat probably in a danger zone environment for about an hour. Let me know in the comments what you think. That's what I was going to talk to Jay about this week. And that's what I want to finish off on, really. Thank you for listening. If you've made your way through to the whole podcast, hope I haven't droned on too far. It's actually not been as bad as I thought. But I am looking forward to get back in a conversation with Jay. I think it's nice when you can sit there and fire off somebody and fire backwards and forwards. So thank you for listening. We are working on getting guests on soon. We're working on getting a permanent space that we can fix in and get guests to come to us. We have advertised on Facebook and Instagram. If any tech savvy 20-year-old or media student wants to give us a hand and join the Dishy Dads podcast, now in the early stages before we start getting sponsors and the podcast starts growing. So if you do know somebody who can help us on the technical side of things, producing, editing, recording the podcast, and then like editing the video between three people, me and Jay and a guest or a couple of guests, that'd be great. Drop us a comment. Follow our social media, Dishy Dad, the Dishy Dads at Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate your time. Totally humbled. If anyone's out there, thank you very much. And that's Gary from the Dishy Dads. And we'll see you next week with Jay, hopefully, and his shiny new teeth from Turkey. Take care now, and thanks for listening. Guys, thank you for listening to the Dishy Dad podcast today with me, Gary, and Jay. Join us in next week's episode, and please feel free to drop us a comment on all major platforms.